welcome you all now to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Geneva. Our church is part of a living tradition. That means we're bound by common history, our affirmation of the great spiritual quest for truth and meaning, and by the promises we make to one another about the spiritual values that we uphold. We have no creed, no tests of faith. Your questions and your doubts are welcome here. Wherever you are on your journey, we invite you to be part of this congregation in which we draw wisdom from all the world's religions, balanced with the insights of modern science. Here we seek to build a diverse, beloved community, and it is our great hope to inspire each other, to challenge each other, and to accompany each other as together we act for hope, peace, love, and justice in our own lives and in the larger world. All right, so this morning I want to start with a couple of stories. I hope you'll forgive me for them. The first is about a wealthy man. Now, he's done very well in his long life. He's been successful. He's had a large family, owned companies, bought all the best clothes and cars and toys. And when he dies, his family, much to their dismay, finds that this man has decided that none of that wealth is going to be passed along. His final will and testament tells his family to sell all of his stocks, all of his clothes, all of his cars, all of his toys, to take all that cash and bury it with him. Out of loyalty, love, and perhaps a binding contract, this is done. The man himself, upon reaching the pearly gates, says to St. Pete, "Ha ha! See, you can take it with you." To which the good saint replies, "But sir, didn't you get the memo? We only take receipts." Don't worry, if you didn't think that was funny, the next one's not going to be either. Who here remembers Irma Bombeck? A few of you. For those of you that don't, she was a brilliant writer, and her syndicated column, At Wit's End, appeared twice a week for over 30 years in newspapers all over the country. The Washington Post described her as, quote, the poet laureate of suburbia. And she was the author of some 16 books with great titles like Motherhood, The Second Oldest Profession, How to Get from Monday to Friday in 12 Days, The Grass is Always Greener Over the Septic Tank, and my personal favorite, When You Look Like Your Passport Photo, It's Time to Go Home. She was prolific, at least, and apparently her readers had a recurring question. How do you do this? Where do you get all of these ideas from? Do you just save them up? Have some sort of rainy day collection that you could use just in case? It's a fair question. Bombeck was a Depression-era kid. Hoarding was a thing. It's how people survived. But she avoided the question until very late in her career when she finally took it up in a column titled, What's Saved is Often Lost. And I'd like to share an excerpt of that column with you today. And yes, this is my second story. So, Bombeck wrote, quote, I don't save anything. My pockets are empty at the end of a week. So is my gas tank. So is my file of ideas. I trot out the best I've got, and come the next week, I bargain, whimper, make promises, cower, and throw myself on the mercy of the Almighty for just another column. Throughout the years, I've seen a fair number of my family who have died, leaving candles that have never been lit, appliances that never got out of the box. I have learned that silver tarnishes when you don't use it. Perfume turns to alcohol. Candles melt in the attic over the summer, and ideas that are saved for a dry week often become dated. I always had a dream that when I am asked to give an accounting of my life to some higher court, it will go like this. So, empty your pockets. What have you got left of your life? Any dreams that were unfilled? Any unused talent that we gave you when you were born that you still have left? Any unsaid compliments or bits of love that you haven't spread around? And I will answer, I've nothing left to return. I spent everything you gave me. I'm as naked as the day I was born. End quote. So, quiz time. Of those two stories, which one of them gets into heaven? Sorry, that's a trick question. We're universalists. Everyone gets into heaven. But I just want to pause and thank my colleague, the Reverend Daniel Cantor, for that joke and the setup for it. But in all seriousness, I have had folks ask me, I can't imagine doing what you do all the time. Where do you get all of those ideas? Do you save them up for a rainy day? This Irma Bombeck quote is where my mind goes, and the answer is no. I don't save things. I don't save my ideas, I spend them. I'm actually not a real big fan of saving for a rainy day either. I mean, in case you haven't noticed, it's been raining for like 2 years. We can't take it with us. So I empty my pockets regularly and routinely. This is just how I live. I don't hold it. I don't hold it back. I just want the receipts. And maybe, just maybe, a chance at something more. But before we get to that, let's do our thing. Thank you, Kevin. In the spirit of our friend, actually, let's bring our friends back into, there we go, right. Now that we're all back together, in the spirit of our friend, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III of Trinity Church here in Chicago, I want you to turn to a neighbor. Yeah, you can, it's the same, I'm still looking right at you. Turn to a neighbor, I can see you. I can still see you. Online, just turn to a neighbor, perfect, there you go. Now, repeat after me, neighbor. Neighbor. Oh, neighbor. Oh, neighbor. The path is the point. Excellent. Excellent. Amen. Thank you so much. They say it is good to give. Maybe you've heard it as, it is better to give than receive. My bet is that we have a reflexive response to hearing those kind of words, don't we? I bet we do. I do. Maybe because the only people that ever seem to use these words are people that are asking us for money. We hear these words and we immediately reach for our wallet, not to pull it out, just to make sure it stays right where it is. As if it might suddenly leap out of our purses or pants pockets, as if it were a broom and this was the sorcerer's apprentice. They say it is good to give. They say it is better to give than receive. I'll confess, I hear that and I think sometimes I think, yeah, right. To be fair, it's hard to blame us for that reaction. Looking around at our world today, all evidence seems to be pointing to the contrary. Yeah, we're surrounded by epic levels of inequality, uncertainty, unrest. So our first, last, and middle temptation may well be to say balderdash and poppycock to this whole giving thing. I hear that. But you know it's coming. Before we get there, I'm going to back up, just step off to the side and suggest that maybe, just maybe, the old wisdom has a kernel of truth buried somewhere inside. They say, they. In this case, the they is the University of Zurich. And they published a study in 2017 titled, "Generous People Live Happier Lives." The conclusion is right in the title, so I'm hardly burying the lead when I say that the science here is actually pretty clear. Those that give, receive. And even small acts of generosity can change not only the way we think, but the way we are. Small acts of generosity can physically transform us from humbug to happy. Now, I keep coming back to the idea of, quote, acting ourselves into new ways of thinking, because it's fun to say. It's funny. And it's funny because as UUs, we tend to do the opposite, don't we? We think, we talk, we debate, but most of all, we think. Paraphrasing what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, when it comes to action, though, sometimes analysis leads directly to paralysis. And that's bad when it comes to injustice. But maybe we can be forgiven just a little. We are the people who lift up the Holy Trinity of reason, tolerance, and freedom. We are wired for intellectual engagement, always armed and ready to make war with words. It's who we are. And we also have a long, long tradition of action around injustice, from abolition to women's rights to LGBTQI equality, to our current organizing around racism. It may take us a few healthy debates to get moving, but move we do. So it shouldn't be a surprise to us that moving, that doing, that acting out there can lead to change in here. That may be moving, doing, and acting even before we have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, when we know the general shape of the problem, when we know, maybe even intuitively, what good people ought to be doing, and then doing that, while we wait for the debate to take shape around us, maybe that's not really a bad thing. Act ourselves into new ways of thinking. But the University of Zurich, they're telling us that maybe we can also act ourselves into new ways of being. And that's kind of curious. Because we've been about this pursuit of happiness thing for a long time now, haven't we? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. With the pandemic and all the noise we have made around masks and vaccines, I wonder if we've been hearing a bit too much about liberty and not enough about the other two. True, liberty is important, but it was that happiness thing that the founders suggested that human life was really aimed at. And this is about as weird to say as I want clean air, clean water, tasty food, shelter, safety, friends, and no unwanted visitors from the Russian military or the Texas governor's office. We all want to be happy. It's slippery, though, that happiness thing. So perhaps that's why they noted that joy was found in the pursuit of happiness, not in the guarantee of it. Even back then, they made it an open-ended inquiry, believing that it was something that we could do and keep doing to make our daily lives better. The obvious irony here, of course, is that our founding fathers, absurdly wealthy to a person, would probably have been rather suspicious of this Zurich conclusion that giving was the key to happiness, but that is a sermon for another day. In 1842, the founders of our church wrote a covenant into their church ledger, a covenant that has been part of our shared worship ever since. It closes with a familiar echo, doesn't it? Our covenant calls us seekers after truth and goodness. Seekers. Not necessarily finders, but seekers. And we might pause and wonder if that same sense of purpose that led the nation's founders also guided our founders in concluding that the path is the point. 180 years is a long time to be on a quest. It is. It's a long time. But it is a remarkable course that we have charted. One church, many spiritual paths, united in a quest for truth and practical goodness. Our founders would be delighted, I imagine, to know that our sanctuary was really their sanctuary, that our gatherings were their gatherings, that our religious ideals were theirs too. Tradition. It's inspiring. Yes, things have changed a bit. I suspect our beautifully painted windows and our reclaimed pews and our one-of-a-kind chalice and all of our awesome internet capacities, that would have probably raised some excessively bushy eyebrows of that early group. Just as the abolition of slavery, the rise of industry, the urban transformation of this region, 2 world wars, 2 vast pandemics, all of that would have raised eyebrows undoubtedly too. Our church has been through a lot, seen a lot. Contraction, expansion, change. But through it all, we have kept the faith and we have kept their covenant, our covenant. It lives on in us, in our kids, and will continue to live on in those who follow us long after we are all gone. Our church was once a big bet, one that 180 years ago is still paying dividends. That initial investment of time, talent, and treasure back in the 1840s has carried all of us forward. Can only wonder where our church will be 180 years from now. I will say, though, that whatever that future looks like, it is my hope that our church will remain that place where people of all stripes, all histories, all backgrounds, all identities will find home and comfort and community, where they, whoever they are, can be seekers after truth and goodness too. And maybe in their seeking, in their pursuing, they will find some of the happiness that comes with the questing and the questioning, that same happiness that people have always found here. Same happiness that we have always found here in our community. Now, I'm not saying that your generous contributions to UUSG will make you happy. Just for the record, that was the University of Zurich. I'm just repeating. I will say, however, that it is your support that makes this place possible and has from the beginning. Unlike so many other churches in the world, UUSG is and has always been entirely supported by the generosity of its members. By our generosity, by our occasionally turning out our pockets. Our small acts of hope and kindness are the investments that keep our church alive and make it a place to live, a vibrant place, a loving place, a place of longing, of lament, of laughter, of light. Our beacon in troubled times, home. This is our home. And we can't take it with us. It's up to us to spend the gifts we've been given to pass them on, because in the end, it is only our receipts that matter, what we have given and given away, the bits of love that we have spread around. This is how our little church lives on, through our gifts today. And because of our love and support, because of your generosity, because of our generosity, our little church becomes a gift itself, our gift to ourselves, sure, Yes. To our families? Right. To our friends and neighbors? Absolutely. But mostly, UUSG is our gift to those who have yet to walk through our real and virtual doors, but might sometime in the next 180 years and more. This is our gift to the future, and as we give, so shall we receive. Today, our community is strong and healthy. And today, I feel like I can see the light at the end of the pandemic tunnel. And I am terrifically excited about what lies ahead for all of us. I can't wait. We have so much yet to do and be and become. The path is the point. And now is the time to celebrate, to invest, to get on with the pursuit of happiness. To get there, stay on that quest, we just need you. Say yes to UUSG. Say yes to community. Say yes to our future. And remember, science says that generosity can not only change our life, generosity can also change your life. I love you. Thank you. Now, as we prepare to leave this place, though, continue your journey in love and continue to care for one another in this, our earth. Do justice and make peace. And as you go, know that whatever taste or touch you've had in this time or place of hope, joy, love, peace, that goes with you out into the world. We are different for having spent this time together. So remember, live boldly and with thanksgiving. And when you go in peace.